What's cooking, big guy? What is going on today, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Today's video is going to be all about the competitive side of things and kind of what players, and more specifically, what general groups of that role think of their role in competitive. I went through and asked every pro player I could. Not all of them got around to respond to me. That's all right. But as many as I could, there ended up being 33 total that gave me this information. And basically, you're going to see what every role individually thinks of all the other roles in terms of impactfulness over like an SPL game, a competitive match. And we're going to talk about, why maybe one role has another role higher or one has one lower or something like that. But I just thought it was going to be interesting. I don't know the entire idea behind the video. I was just super interested to see what roles generally thought about all the other roles. So let's start it off. What did every role combine think was the strongest role in the game? Starting with the strongest role in the game. So the scoring system I did is I had them rank 1 to 5. If it was ranked first, it got 1 point. If it was ranked fifth, it got 5 points. And then it was just divided by the total players responding. And that's how I came up with these numbers. So the number one strongest role, what's your guess? It is considered to be jungle by a pretty okay margin. Overall, jungles impact the early game. They help you manage your own lane or help you win your lane. So they really dictate the early portions of the game. And then they're just very, very good duelists a lot of time in the late game. The number 2 role was voted to be mid lane. And this one is kind of weird. This is the only one, I'm pretty sure, that was exactly second place. So jungle, exactly number 2 with 2 points average. It was literally rated as the second best average across the entire board. And it's no surprise with how strong mid lane is right now. This is over this meta right now with how much farm is in mid. Mid laners are hitting 20 at like 19, 18 minutes. So no surprise, they're very strong. Their builds late game, book, breastplates, if they need that, just full build. They do so much damage and they get to that late game very, very quickly. Next role, support. Now I was a little interested because I figured that, solo lane in the current meta with those mage solos would make people vote for them a little bit more, or ADCs with the capabilities of to 1v5 late game. And we see like a lot of the strong ADC gods over the past year. Oleruns, Freyas, even a little bit of Soul, Chernobog. Very strong gods. So I was a little surprised to not see ADCs any higher. And that leaves solo and ADC as the 2 weakest roles. And what do you think was the weakest role overall? It was ADC, and it was by a chunky margin, 0.7 votes on average. ADC was by far voted the most in 5th. It was not particularly close. 4.48 on average. Almost half the people have it in 5th place as the weakest role. And now let's just jump right into individual roles and kind of talk about why they think stuff is in a certain spot. We're starting with ADCs and we're working our way on over to solo lane. So starting with ADCs, ADCs had mid lane as the strongest role. And I was a little curious about it. And then I thought about it for just a couple minutes. And I figured, I think ADCs think that mid is the strongest right now because they see how free they get to that late game portion of the game, which is what they want to get to. An ADC wants to hit level 20 at 20. They don't do that. They hit 20 at like 21, 22. A mid hits 20 at 19, 20. So I think it's like this role is so impactful because of how fast they get to late game, and then the rest of the game just does not matter. But beyond that, jungle is also still very powerful to them, just not quite on the same tier as mid lane with 1.85. And you hear about ADCs. They want you to show up to their shield camp so they can confirm it. A lot of times, sometimes they're fine if they're playing like Jingweis, Chernobyls, they don't mind giving it up. But they want to fight on their side of the maps a lot of the time, and they think that jungles kind of impact that a lot. And that's kind of the same thing as support. Supports just can't kill them, jungles can. So I think that's where that kind of switches up. And then I was a little surprised to see solos so low for ADCs. I think it comes down to they're both side laners, and they kind of feel how it is to have like the 3v3 kind of dictate most of the game. This is the 3v3 right here. All voted above 3rd, and then solo and ADC are voted below 4, which is kind of wild. So I think they just see them both on an island, realize they aren't able to make as big of an impact as this core 3. Next up is support, and almost completely like flipped at the top and then flipped at the bottom a little bit. Jungle's at 1.85 and mid's at 2.7, which is very, very low compared to the 2 and the 1.7 here. Again, supports kind of see junglers as that roaming role that they want to be, but they can kind of do it by themselves, where a lot of the time the support needs somebody with them to be able to make a play. So I think they kind of see that as a very powerful play. Mid number 2, get them to late game. They do their things, very safe, farm quickly. It makes sense. And then solo lane is kind of like the better support, I think, is what they think in their mind, where it's just, yeah, we get to solo farm to late game, not get one shot. We get to play these OP mage solos, poke and all that. And then us lowly supports at 3.16. We're so reliant on our team. That's kind of what we need to do. But they recognize ADC at 4.71, which is crazy. They had 4.71, which is even lower than the overall rankings for ADC. And then next up is jungle with mid at 1.3 and jungle at 2.5. Almost an entire one skip all the way down to 2.5, where a lot of the other times, I mean, it's up almost at 1.5. Junglers just view what mid laners get to do as just so free. Junglers cannot really kill them any points. They can get one shot by them, and they farm and they get to late game way too quickly. And I think they're kind of seeing that, and then they can also rotate and make plays, or also just take their farm and farm it up. And then junglers still recognize that they're pretty powerful, but they just think mid laners are able to do so much more. With actually solo and support at 3.5 each, both of the frontliner roles don't really have the damage to make plays. And then lastly, ADCs at 4.5, which is about where they are overall. Still the weakest role to them, but not by a resounding margin like supports did. Next up is the mid lane role with no troll. Every mid laner voted for jungler as the strongest role. Every single one of them that I got votes from. That is wild. Jungles just ruin their game. They're able to rotate. They dictate where they want to win. That's how mids view it. Mid laners view their own role as kind of, yeah, we're impactful late game, but I mean, we have to get there. Yes, we have to farm up. Yes, we can farm pretty well. Yes, we're part of that 3v3 and we do damage, but it's not that much damage until late. Supports at 3. Exactly 3, actually. No surprise. The mid 3v3 again voted as the top 3. The only time the mid 3v3 jumped out or was not in the top 3 is with solo lane when supports voted them. And then solos at 4 overall and ADCs at 4.57. And lastly, the solo laners and what they thought of their own roles. 1.42 for mids, 1.85 for jungles. But they had their own role at 3.71. And ADCs at 3.85. This was wild to me. 5 out of the 7 solo laners had support as the weakest and most unimpactful role in competitive, which is very interesting to me. I think solo laners just value that damage. Oh, hopefully this doesn't bother any of you that entire time. Holy, I apologize. If that bothered you, I apologize. I'll write you a sorry in the comments if you tell me that bothered you. It was crazy to see supports voted so low in this solo lane part of it, but pretty much higher everywhere else. I mean, 2.85 around that 3 spot, but all the way down to 4.57 and ADC at 3.85. And you see just how much damage ADCs do to solos late game. So I think that's where that comes from. But yeah, I don't really have an entire idea of what I wanted to do with this information. I was just very curious what each individual role thought of their role, other roles, and then overall what everyone kind of thought of it. But it was very interesting. I hope you guys were interested with it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any other like maybe SPL focused content that maybe I can ask the pros, gather that information. Obviously, I don't want to show each of their individual rankings because I don't want that to, maybe affect worlds where it's like, these guys think this role is the most impactful, so that's maybe we got to change up or whatever. So we're just sticking with this. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.